This is a 2009 Specialized Rockhopper.
And this is the Lutsen 99er mountain bike race. A grueling 87-mile race through mud, rocks, rain, and mosquitoes. I chose to ride in one of the hardest mountain bike races in the country on a bike that costs less than the entry fee. Choosing to use just a $50 mountain bike may have been one of the biggest mistakes in my mountain biking career, and it may have cost me my chance at crossing the finish line. In January of 2023, I quit my big corporate job, and suddenly, I had a lot of free time on my hands. This was the perfect catalyst to train for some big race in a sport I've never competed in. My friends Danny and Lucas are serious cyclists. I mean, they identify as cyclists. Danny has ridden across the entire United States, and Lucas used to compete in road cycling, and he bikes in Switzerland in his free time. If they want to race this together, I'm gonna have to train way more just to keep up with them. The Lutsen 99er takes place in the almost Canadian town of Lutsen, Minnesota. It involves about 7,000 feet of climbing and a lot of different surfaces. So there's 7% single track, 10% pavement, 40% snowmobile or ATV 2-track, and 43% gravel roads. Surprisingly, the Lutsen 99er is not actually 99 miles. It's only 87. So I knew this thing was gonna be easy. Now, I'm no stranger to mountain biking, and I've even run a couple ultramarathons in my day, so I had reason to believe that this was gonna be easy. I mean, I was coming from Colorado, where I regularly ride at elevations of 10,000 feet, and the trails are way gnarlier than anything you would see in Minnesota. Or so I thought. When I was training for the race, I kept thinking about that race surface breakdown. I mean, only 40% of the race was on that ATV snowmobile 2-track. I only had to deal with 40% of butt soreness. Now I do have a Specialized stump jumper, but that thing is built for Colorado with 150 millimeters of travel in the front and the rear. It's made for big drops, big rocks, and frankly, just not Lutsen or Minnesota riding.
Nate?
What's up, Zach?
Just chilling. You?
I'm calling Zach Burton, a 3-time finisher of the Lutsen 99er, for some advice on which bike I should take.
Yeah, I mean, you will pay the price on the double track because there are some rough parts of that, and it's kind of deceiving in that it looks smooth. It's like grassy, but there's a lot of like rocks underneath that you don't really like see until you're there. So if you take the Rockhopper, it's going to be about like choosing a smart line and like kind of like saving yourself a bit through those sections, and then when you get out onto the more like open gravel and like smooth parts, that's when you're going to gain time back. Obviously the full suspension like is going to be smoother and maybe a little bit more like fun if you're looking to just kind of cruise it.
Yeah.
I think if you're trying to go fast and put up a decent time, like the Rockhopper is going to be the ticket.
Maybe.
When the 2009 Specialized Rockhopper came out, it cost $700, which was an affordable bike considering most mountain bikes cost well over $3,000. But over time, this bike's value has deteriorated to a measly $50. It has an aluminum frame, a RockShox Dart front suspension that somehow still works, and I've done some modifications to the original bike. So it has drop bars in the front, SRAM Rival shifting, and a SRAM 1x drivetrain. It still has the original V brakes, although I've changed out the pads because they failed me on a mountain descent. It has flip-flop pedals that can be used with both street shoes and mountain biking shoes. It has one water bottle holder because the other mount, the threads are stripped. And for the race, I outfitted it with new Maxxis tires for extra grip. That turned out to be extremely valuable. Yeah, It's a fun bike.
To solidify my decision in what bike to take, I went out and rode one of my favorite trails in Golden, Colorado, the North Table Loop. This trail is known for 3 things: chunky, loose rocks. If I could make it on this trail, I thought that this bike would stand a chance at finishing the Lutsen 99er. I would ride this trail twice in the same ride, and at the end of the day, if it was passable, I thought I had a good chance of surviving the race with this bike. The loops were not the most comfortable on the Rockhopper, but it was tolerable.
Not even gonna try this one.
And hey, I only have to tolerate 40% of the race for this, so I thought, let's do it. The Rockhopper is coming with me to Minnesota. Wait, isn't 40% a lot?
What? Are you guys ready? One more time, are you ready? All right, 99ers. In 5.
The bike race started out with a climb over 3 miles long. This was the only pavement during the race, so it should be the most comfortable too. There was so much adrenaline at the start of the race. I remember starting and thinking, we are going incredibly fast. Shouldn't we pace ourselves? This felt like a pace that I would be on a ride and pushing myself with this pace. I mean, we have 87 miles to go, and it felt like we were going very fast from the start. Little did I know that this pace would only continue for the entire race. I tried keeping up with Danny and Lucas from the start of the race, but slowly the distance between us grew and grew. When we got to the first section of gravel and 2-track, that distance only grew greater. So much for our plan of sticking together. Talking to you, Danny and Lucas. There was so much congestion at the start of the race, all I could think about was sticking directly on the tire in front of me, because I knew behind me there was somebody right on my tire just waiting for an opportunity to pass. I didn't want to slow anybody down or cause any crashes, so I just smashed on the pedals as hard as I could. And speaking of smashing, if you could smash that like and subscribe button, that would help me out.
Sweet. So much for dry socks.
Oh baby, we are in it now. The first aid station felt like a group of cyclists raiding a small village for their remaining supplies in a zombie apocalypse. I mean, it was total chaos. Water bottles were flying everywhere, snacks were going on the ground. Thankfully, Danny and Lucas were there waiting for me.
You guys are all insane. Dude, so fast. People are going all out, man. This is so much different than every ride I've been on. Yeah. It's just like no breaks, no food, head down.
From there, I think the adrenaline wore off a little bit, and we all kind of eased into the tempo of the race. This was going to be a long day. The pace never eased up, but thankfully, Danny and Lucas and I stuck together for basically the rest of the race. I don't know if I could have done this race without the moral support of Danny and Lucas riding with me.
You see Danny? You see Dino? I heard you saying that.
The next part of the course involved a figure 8 sort of thing with rolling 2-track and some gravel sections that we had to do twice. Supposedly, this was the hardest part of the race. This is where things started to get really difficult. The 2-track section was so incredibly bumpy that I had to hold on for dear life on the downhills and brake a lot. That meant I couldn't use all of that speed and all of that energy that I had worked up from riding up those hills on the downhills. So it just resulted in me going slower and slower and more people just passing me on this race. The narrow bars were definitely not a good choice for this bike because I just didn't have the confidence or the balance to really cruise on the downhills. And as for the rigid half of my bike, every single bump that I went over just sent a jolt of me right out of my seat, and it continued like that for basically the entire race. Eventually, we made it to halfway.
I think I want to cry.
but I'm having fun. There's something wrong, and I can't pinpoint what it is. It's just kind of total body everything.
And with our heads down, we continued into the second half of the race. This part of the course had more of the same gravel, rocks, 2-track, and mud. Soon we made it to the infamous Beaver Pond, the deepest water feature on the course. I feel like it's crazy that I even have to say that there's a water feature on the course. I attempted to cross this sight unseen, but I had to unclip at the very end when it got super deep. Lucas managed to snag a send and made it all the way across without unclipping the pedal.
Nice.
I really felt my bike starting to break down at this part of the race. I think there was just so much gunk and dirt built up into the derailleur that it wasn't shifting properly. It would shift, and then sometimes there would be a whole minute that would go by before it actually shifted into the upper gear, and sometimes it wouldn't shift at all.
My shifting is messed up. Yeah. Sometimes. It's in a really high gear.
This resulted in me being in some really incorrect gears for steep climbs or going down hills.
Yeah.
I just started to fall back from Danny and Lucas. It sucked. We made it to the last aid station and it started to rain on us. But we had made it 70 miles and we only had 17 miles to go, and a lot of that was single track.
How do you feel, Danny?
I wish it wasn't raining. I'm gonna be honest. I'll be honest.
So, as we did with the rest of the race, we just put our heads down and continued to pedal.
Big sigh.
Finally, we made it to the single track. This portion of the course was actually pretty fun. It wasn't too muddy because there was so much tree cover in there, and there were a lot of turns and different features that were really fun to go over. I couldn't take this part super fast, again, because of my narrow bars. So a lot of those turns, I was just on the brakes, and a lot of those rock features, I just had to go slowly over. But I didn't want to crash and ruin my chances of finishing being this close to the end of the course. So I took things slowly and in control, and eventually we made it out of the single track.
My beautiful boys!
Danny and Lucas were waiting there for me because the gap had increased quite a bit and we only had a couple hundred yards to the finish line. We finished the Lutsen 99er with a total time of 9 hours and 5 minutes. I don't care if it was way longer than everyone else, or that the first place finisher finished 4 hours before us, or that we finished 528th out of 591 riders. None of that matters. We did the dang thing, and at the end of the day had a blast riding an awesome course. Let me be perfectly clear when I say I should not have ridden this bike on the Lutsen 99er. 100%. It was the wrong bike to take. But I learned if you're crazy enough and willing to push yourself, even inexpensive bikes can cut it on some really serious riding. Just don't come crying to me when your butt hurts a little bit more than everyone else on the ride. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you like this video, again, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.
Did you really?
Thanks for watching.
Really that? Ooh, that's a long day.
Wait, really? Yes, dude!
So the out and back must have been...
Oh, hell no.